Welcome to My Favorite CX, a podcast that celebrates exceptional customer experiences. To listen to today's, please choose from one of the following options.
Welcome to My Favorite Customer Experience, a podcast that celebrates great customer experience. I'm Chris Holt from Holt CX Consultancy in the UK, and today I'm joined by Jim Tatchell, founder at Circadian FX. Jim, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Chris. Lovely to be here.
Now, Jim is an emergency podcast guest who was cajoled over a pint of beer last night because he was joining us at our local running group as the co-founder of the charity Helping Hearts, who look to improve the lives of young people across Hertfordshire and the UK through working with 12 different specialist charities. Jim is also a CEO of Diagram Capital, a wealth management company, and a foreign exchange and tangible assets expert as the founder of Circadian FX, which we're going to talk a little bit about today. Jim, I know that you wear many hats, and actually when we first met was on the cricket field, probably batting very badly together, but having quite a lot of fun doing so.
Speak for yourself, Chris. I was batting beautifully and hitting it very cleanly right up until the moment when I probably didn't.
So, Jim, why don't you tell us a little bit about what is it you do? We talked about a few things there in the intro.
Yeah. So my background is in financial services, and I've worked for too many years to say, over 30 in the city, one way or another. And so I've worked my way around through large banks, smaller banks, asset management companies, even a news company, news agency for a while. And so it occurred to me that over that time, I'd built up a fair amount of knowledge and experience. And just under 10 years ago, so it would be 10 years in May, I set up Circadian FX to look after the needs of initially friends and family, but also a wider audience of people that are doing things overseas. And that's overseas for them, wherever they're based. And so my clients are based all around the world, right the way from the US to the Far East. And so that's how Circadian FX came about, how it evolved, and that's how it started.
And we said in the intro, tangible assets. For a layman like me, that I don't think I have any tangible assets, but what does that mean?
I'm sure you do. Tangible assets are things that you can touch, feel, sometimes lift up, not always, but they are assets that are not just a number on a computer screen. So it could be a classic car, it could be a watch, it could be a piece of art. All those lovely bits of art behind you have some value, some of them more than others maybe, I don't know, but tangible assets could be artwork. Classic cars are interesting because they tend to have a slightly different tax treatment, but we're not here to talk about tax. So tangible assets are an asset class that is as legitimate as shares, equities, as bonds, gilts, those sort of things. So they are as real as those assets, but actually they behave in a slightly different way. And sometimes they behave in the opposite direction to other markets. So they can be used as a very useful hedge, as a very useful diversification tool. If you look and see what's happened to the price of gold, silver, you'll see what happens when there's geopolitical uncertainty. And so that's why tangible assets are of a lot of interest to corporates and to individuals alike.
And how is it that you help individuals and businesses in that?
Yeah, so my main focus is more on the foreign exchange side and the international business side of things, rather than the tangible asset investment side now these days. And the foreign exchange side works, as I'll explain a little bit about the market now. There are three distinct ways that if you're buying, let's say you're buying a property overseas, there are three distinct ways that you can do that. You can make the payment out to the the company that you need to pay out in Spain, for example. So you're buying a property in Spain. The lawyer, the solicitor, the conveyancing company in Spain will need to be paid at some point. It's in this instance, you have your savings in pounds, but you need to pay in euros. So the first way you can do it is you can use an app like Revolut, or what used to be TransferWise is now Wise. And those are at the sort of buy it high and sell it cheap end of the market. So you don't really get much of a service from those people. You don't get looked after. You don't have any personal interaction with them. In fact, heaven help you if you need to have some personal interaction with them because you just can't get hold of anyone. That's fine for smaller amounts. And I tend to recommend that up to about £5,000 or so, they're fine, because that's not a life-changing amount if it were to go missing. The regulation that those organizations operate under is also sometimes questioned by some people, because it may be Lithuanian regulated, it may be Belgian regulated, depending on the example that you used. And they're not UK regulated in the same way that some other organizations are. So that's for the smaller amount, and they're very efficient, very effective most of the time, right up until when they stop being so, and then you've got a real problem.
Okay.
So I recommend those for little bits. The other end of the scale, in terms of how difficult it is to actually do something, is to say to your bank, I want to send some euros to this account in Spain. And the banks do this. It's not their speciality or specialism, depending on how you want to phrase it. It's not their core business, but they do make an awful lot of money out of it. So they all offer it. So they will all do a payment to Spain. And they will charge you an arm and a leg for it. And again, the service is very patchy. Usually you don't have somebody that you can know and trust that's been in the market, that understands what you're trying to do. You can't really have a conversation with them about timing, because timing with foreign exchange is really important, because rates whiz up and down and around and about all the time. You have to have your eye on it. You have to have your eye on the ball. You have to know what you're talking about. And the banks do a very patchy job. And like I said, they'll charge you typically 2, 3, 4% at least when you add it all together, for the sake of making a payment, which is a bit wrong. And I thought that was wrong. And the final route that people use, the final way, and there is a point to this, the final route is you can use a specialist. And that's where Circadian FX fits in as a specialist. And there are many, many subspecialists. There are a lot of specialists in the market. And the way that almost all of those specialists work is they fill a room full of youngish people, almost always. They give them a pile of phone numbers to ring up, and they get the young people in that office to ring up lots of different people and companies and say, we'll do you a better rate on your FX than you get at the moment, which is a race to zero. It's a little bit unstructured in that these guys can't really have much experience in the market by definition, that they're 18, 19, 20. They don't really know what they're talking about. And it just gets really annoying for the people on the other end of the phone who may get 5, 6, 7 more of these calls a week, sometimes when it's busy. So they all operate in a similar way, and they will compete with the banks. They will compete with one another. They'll offer a reasonable service. Really, they're just out to build their volumes up as much as they can. And fair enough. Why not? Why wouldn't you?
And none of those.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, none of those sound like they're delivering an exceptional customer experience, though. They're either high volume, well, all of them sound high volume, low touch, essentially.
In the real world, yes, that's true. They will all promise they offer a great customer service, but in reality, my experience and the experience of my clients and other people I've spoken to is very, very different. The customer experience is weak and patchy. Patchy's, sometimes you'll find little pockets of good quality, but not often. So what I then went and did was that I looked around at the different models that these specialist organizations use. And the model that I sort of ended up choosing is to work as a brand. So Circadian FX is a brand. We don't actually make the actual payment. We are not a payment services provider. We are not regulated as such and authorized as such. I use a specialist company. In fact, I use 2 specialist companies in order to do that. So that enabled me to choose the best of breed of effectively the engine room, the provider of the service, to make sure that I had the best that there is available in the market. And I chose 2 organizations to do this. One is called Currency Cloud, which is now part of the Visa world. Another is an independent called SioPay. And they do a similar thing. Currency Cloud and SioPay provide the system. They provide the actual screen that you see. It'll be badged and labeled Circadian. And actually, I'm your first point of contact because I'm the guy that brought you here. I'm the guy that has the experience. I'm the person that has the conversation with the client. I gather all the client's data and information for them to set up their account. I make sure the client's happy. I can even execute the trade for the client if they want me to, the conversion. But actually, the client has an excellent experience in my view and in my client's view. They're all happy, obviously. I haven't had any complaints forever. I haven't had any complaints against the business. And it's always been, I really like what you do. In fact, I will recommend you to my friends and family. And that's how my business has grown over the past 10 years and at least survived, because not many businesses do survive over 5 years. So we're pretty proud of that. And the reason that we survive is that we offer an excellent experience to our clients. And that may be that the platform works very well. So the platform that people can use if you're an importer, say you're an importer of coffee beans and you need to pay for your coffee beans in US dollars and all your customers are in the UK. So you're always got pounds, but you need dollars regularly. You might need to do, I don't know, a couple of $100,000 a month, say, if you're a decent sized importer. The way that you change your pounds into dollars, the way that you send those dollars out to your suppliers, that's important because that is straight to your bottom line. It means that you need to know that you're comfortable, to know where your money is at all times. You can track where it is, you can follow it, you can keep tabs on it, and you can know that you're being treated fairly and consistently all day long. And so that's where my passion is for customer experience, if you like. But actually, I may not be the cheapest out there. There may be some people out there that are going to say, well, we'll give you 0.1% cheaper than those people. And fine, they might. But then after 6 months, you'll find it very quietly just drifting out. The pricing gets a little bit less competitive. I don't behave like that. I'm consistent and solid when I say, this is what your pricing looks like. This is what you will pay every time. Obviously, the market moves up and down. We can't do anything about that. But relative to the market, you'll be in line. And actually, you get a consistent and realistic pricing model and a great service at the same time. And being able to do both those things at once, being able to be ultra competitive on pricing, as well as offering, in my view and others, the best service possible, the best platform, the best systems that are available. If you can do all those things, then I can sleep at night. So, and I do. I sleep well at night.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting point, but we're seeing customer experience and customer service be a differentiator for businesses now. And to your point, you could, save a couple of percentage points by moving around, but you've then got the hassle of doing so and of building those relationships and what happens when they then, downgrade you to a different account manager and all that kind of stuff. By offering, to your point, the exceptional ability to transact and the service wrap, you're allowing that differentiation, which means the price can be still competitive, but worth the premium as such.
Absolutely. And the way that I put it across to people when I'm in conversation about pricing is I need to look at what's going to be attractive to you, but I also need to think of what pricing is fair to me too. And that's unusual. People don't say, "Oh, I thought you just priced the best that I can possibly find, and I just have to find the cheapest price, and that's all that matters." No, it has to be fair to me too. I have to be able to survive off this. I have to be able to pay all my costs. Luckily, I don't have masses of costs because the counterparty risk, the compliance risk, the regulatory risk, and the market risk are all absorbed by my payment platform providers, who are Castel, Visa, and SioPay, as I mentioned. But I still have my own costs. I still have to pay my insurance, my accountants, etc., etc. You know what it's like.
Yeah.
So I can't give it away for nothing. And I wouldn't give it away for nothing and then just secretly slide a little bit more expensive, which is the model that a lot of other people out there use. I don't feel comfortable with that. I would rather say, are you happy with that? And if you're happy with that, you know, if somebody comes and says, I'll offer you a little bit cheaper, you say, no, actually, I'm really happy with the service that I get from Circadian. I'm really happy with the experience I get. I'm happy with their system, with their platforms. I know they work. I know they're straight with me. I know they don't lie to me. Yeah, why is that? Why is that something that I have to advertise now? I don't lie to my clients because it's so prevalent these days. Maybe I'm sounding like a person who's moaning, but that is weird that I'm having to say we're unusual because we don't lie to our clients.
I mean, someone will always be cheaper, but it's the integrity, I think, that matters a lot now as well. And it's really interesting that if people trust you, they're more likely to spend with you and spend more with you for longer as well. So you could be cheaper, but it will be transactional. And then you'll move on to the next one. And you'll always find someone cheaper, but will you be satisfied? And will it have been a high effort experience in doing that when you could have stayed with something that was exceptional and consistent?
Absolutely. And the other thing that brings is, I touched earlier that I operate on a recommendation model rather than throwing a lot of money at Google Ads or PPC or whatever. I've tried some of those things, and the quality of client that comes to me is pretty poor. But actually, from personal side, I was really pleased in December last year. I did my largest ever private client transaction, which was a local couple that sold a large property in Portugal for a number of million euros. And that piece of business came from a corporate client who uses us every week. And the corporate client says, "Oh yeah, I know someone that will look after you. Yeah, how's the word with Jim? He'll make sure that everything goes smoothly." It was a bit of a pain with some of the Portuguese banks and lawyers, etc. We had a bit of a moment where's all the euros? Why have they not arrived yet? It's the issue. But we covered that.
Always a scary moment as well.
Yeah, there's always a bit of a gulp. It's coming. It'll be fine. It'll be in your account, he said confidently. And luckily it was. And it did appear on their account. And the Portuguese bank just said, "Oh, yeah, well, we just sat on it for a while." Okay, thanks. Thanks for letting us know. But yeah,
thanks for managing that expectation.
I was on the client side, and the client at the end, once we'd done everything and converted it all back into pounds for them, they were absolutely cock-a-hoop. I think thrilled to bits.
There's an interesting point there as well about, one, don't undervalue yourself, but also make sure you work with people you want to work with. Don't be afraid to, and this is difficult. I'm in my second-ish year of doing this, and you're constantly weighing up. In fact, previous guest on the show said, I always look at what if in 12 months I could be bankrupt if I don't do this right. So you're always looking at going, well, should I take this job? And it can be very difficult at times to ignore the red flags that you've got in order to, to chase something. But it is important to stick to what it matters to you as well. If it doesn't feel right, and if it's not something that is gonna, as you say, allow you to live.
I think that's right. It's a balance. You can't just say, I would only speak to people and deal with people who look and sound and feel exactly like me. That's also not going to work, and you can't be too picky. I was just thinking, there's an echo there about who you vote for, right? So you vote for a person, you vote for a party, and you have to approximate to the person and the party that feels closest to your values and to what's important to you. And actually, it's the same in business. You do business with people whose values like that. Whoever's closest and who feels closest to your values and what's important to you. And that's the same thing. It's really weird. It's almost like they're voting to trade with you, to deal with you, and do business with you.
I think you made a good point there. If you don't want to only work with people like yourself, but actually it's for values. So you could be completely different to the people you work with, but if you don't have the same values, things won't work because you won't find that common ground when things do get tough.
Absolutely, 100%. And actually finding people that you can work with rather than, I mean, yeah, it's nice to be in a position where you just trade with people you like. That's a really nice situation to be in, but that tends to be more mature businesses. You certainly can't do that in the first couple of years. You just have to suck it up and make the most of it.
Yep. Jim, let's take a short break there. We'll place our listeners and viewers on hold. And when we come back, we'll ask you about one of your favorite customer experiences.
Thank you.
Your call is important to us. Please hold and you'll be connected to your next favorite customer experience shortly.
Welcome back, folks, to My Favorite Customer Experience. I'm joined this week by Jim Tatchell, the founder at Circadian FX. And Jim, first off, we're talking about what you do and how customer experience and providing an exceptional one is at the forefront of what you do. On the second half of the show, we ask you to tell us about a recent favorite customer experience.
Yeah.
Hopefully a good one.
Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, obviously, I could just have a moan about something, but I can't really think of anything to moan about. And the reason that I'm so zen and so calm right now is that right at the back end of last year, I realized that I didn't really take any time just to breathe and to just slow down a little bit. And also, none of us are getting any younger. I needed to concentrate a little bit more on flexibility, strength, movement. And I thought, how am I going to do all these things? And clearly, I needed to look for a yoga class. Right? So, a bit unusual, but it's something I decided I wanted to give a try. I thought I'd give it a go, see how it went. And I went to a couple of different ones, but earlier today, I had an hour with Kerry Tiffin Yoga, who runs a class on Fridays at lunchtime at Thorley Community Centre. And a bunch of us turn up, and we love doing yoga with Kerry, and Kerry loves doing yoga with us. And it is very clear that she really enjoys what she does. And that's just so nice. It's so lovely. You come away feeling just like you're in a much calmer, more comfortable place than you were. It's still Thorley, but still, I mean, place internally than you were when you got there. And she has this way of just in a very calm and smiley way, making you do quite difficult things. Some of the stuff is really hard. Not advanced in the way that you need to have been doing it for 30 years to be able to do it, but it's quite it involves a bit of core strength, it involves a bit of control, it involves a bit of mind over matter, sometimes a little bit of saying, I can't possibly stand on that leg and move the other leg in that direction. That's just not going to work. But she has a way of coaxing you into being able to do that. And I've been going a couple of months now, and I don't think I think I missed one class, and the rest of the time I've started to go there religiously, not quite the right word for yoga, but it could be. And the other people there are so welcoming, and she just runs a really, really fantastic hour. And it just it helps us in this hectic, fast consumer bang bang day and age to just do something that just helps you breathe properly and in lots of ways. I mean, you're not just breathing properly as in inhaling and exhaling, although we do think about that and work on that and concentrate on what it feels like, where you're breathing to, where your shoulders are, how your posture is, etc. That stuff's all included. But actually being able to breathe as in to just go, okay, these things are really important, but I'm just going to put them to one side for a moment. I'm going to concentrate on something really different. And just that focus and that concentration that we all have. There was a point today where Carrie said, "I'd just like you all to give me a smile because you all look really serious. I know you're concentrating really hard. Just give us," and we couldn't help it. We just had to give her a grin. And that was lovely. She's just the best. I've only ever met 2 yoga teachers, but she's the best one I've ever met.
In the top two, which is always good. I think it's a really interesting point as well of mental downtime. And I know I like to think that I should do it, and occasionally I do, and sometimes I don't. And I think for me, the first time I realized the real need for it was during COVID, where I lost the commute, which I wasn't sad about losing the commute. But if you're on a train or, driving, you could be listening to a podcast, you can be reading, you can be just taken away from whatever it is you're doing. And I found myself during COVID doing just longer days, essentially. And then my commute was from the shed to the dining room, and that was it. And I realized you need to find a way. And we actually started putting in what we called a virtual commute, or I don't think we called it something quite that bad, but we kind of put in a stopgap because I'd finish up and then I'd just start cooking dinner for the family as well. So yesterday when we met, I had been on the road for 3 days. I'd been coming back from the Midlands, and I got to where we were running. Rather than going home, I was like, you know what, I'll be more efficient. Rather than have 10 minutes at home and have to rush out the door, I'll go there. And I got there with half an hour before everyone came in. And I took my laptop in and did half an hour of working on emails. And at one point, Georgia WhatsApped me, go, "Why are you working on emails?" I'm like, "Because I've got half an hour." My other option was I could take my book in and just read that for half an hour and just had a bit of downtime. But it's one of those where it goes back to that, when you're in your early years doing this kind of thing, you constantly feel you should be doing something, you should be productive. But actually, downtime could be the most productive thing you can do sometimes.
I think there's a bit of a culture of busy to look busy or busy being busy. People are just busy being busy, and they're rushing around, having meetings, having discussions, having conversations. When you cut through to the chase, the productivity is pretty low sometimes in some circumstances. I was just thinking about that. I feel a bit uncomfortable about using downtime. I think it's different time, because
Yes.
downtime to me has a bit of a feeling of these things are positively important, but your downtime's a bit less important. And actually you're just down, and you're just down, not down as in miserable, but down as in you put your tools down, you're not really working, you're not being productive. But actually, I don't know, there are stats out there, I'm sure we could find them if we looked, but the stats of people who take meditation seriously, who take an hour to do something else with their time rather than the emails, the sales, the social media, the blah, blah, blah. The people that take a specific time to focus intensely on something different, they're probably over the whole day and the whole week and months and years way more productive than people that are just busy, 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 busy all the time. And so I think it's different time rather. It's making sure that what you're doing is something different to what you would otherwise be rushing around at in a blue behind it fly sort of way, which is what happens.
Yeah. It's too easy to get. I mean, I know places I worked in the past, there was the need to be seen to be online. And I remember once, like, I used to get heat because I would not be logged in after 6 or not available. I'd turn off the corporate apps after 6, or I'd go on holiday and delete the app and be like, I will be back in 2 weeks. I was in sales engineering. There's no such thing as, it's not life and death, frankly. It's not like you're supporting a contact center for 999 or anything. It's sales opportunities. Frankly, it's not life and death. So I think having that downtime was more important. And I think it gets increasingly harder to try and do that. And I like the idea of it being different time, of it being time just to sit back and read a book, go for a walk, do something different. One of my things is actually playing with technology, which, there've been times where George has walked in here on a weekend and gone, "You're working." I'm like, "No, I'm playing." Just like she'll go and do a maths problem because she's a maths teacher and she loves doing that. If I'm playing with a virtual agent or a contact center, that also stimulates. So it's trying to find that happy balance.
I think that's absolutely the right word. I think balance is exactly it. And thinking about obviously thinking about the evolution of finance in the City of London over the past 50 years. Okay, just thought that popped into my head. These things happen. So 50 years ago, stock exchange was at its height, people wearing bowler hats and suits. They would be open from maybe 10 till 12 and 2 till 4. And that's when the exchange would be open. The rest of the time, you're getting yourself sorted out and ready. You're having a nice lunch in a civilized place. This is caricature, but the way it was for a lot of people. And then afterwards, you'd have a few social drinks with your team, with your counterparties, with your competitors, maybe in a local hostelry, and then you'd all get the train home. And that was the way that the city worked until some of the more internationally minded mergers happened, particularly a Japanese style of work, an American style of work came in. And the American style of work is to work like crazy. The people who work the hardest make the most money. We're here to make money. We're not here to have fun. We're not here to be friendly. We're here to make money. And that's the only thing that matters. And you will work from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. if that's what it takes. And actually, there were people that I remember working with in the 1990s who were afraid to leave before their boss. And so you'd be looking over at the boss's office all the time going, "Has the boss done yet? Has the boss done yet? Can I leave? It's gone 7 o'clock. You've got young children at home. You've got a family life or not." And that's where burnout happens. And actually what's happening now is we're starting to see a bit more of a balance. And one of the things that we learned from the COVID time, horrible though it was, is that actually a bit more of a balance between being in the office and being at home is helpful. And a lot of the financial services firms that I'm talking to that I know and love, they maybe work 60% of their time in the office and 40% from home. And that works for a lot of people. It doesn't work for everyone. And there's still stuff that needs to be worked on, like how do you teach new recruits soft skills? How do the younger people coming through learn about how the whole world works rather than just being on, nothing wrong with the Zoom call, but it's not everything for everyone. So there are challenges, but actually the balance is much better now than I think it's ever been, in as much as, yeah, people still work really hard and they work when they're really busy and they work until the job's done, but they don't sit there as much, I hope now, waiting for the boss to go because you have to kowtow to your boss because your boss is important and I can't possibly leave before they do and I have to be here before they are involved. That's just nonsense. And so having that balance is really, really crucial.
I think it is interesting but you still get pushback, and you wonder what's behind some of the pushback, and certainly you also see some founders pushing a 996 culture, which frankly sounds like way too many hours to be doing stuff and not enough time to relax. But I think it's interesting that you're seeing more, especially with more and more neurodivergent people in the workplace as well, that the ways of working are changing. So I know I might be working at 7 in the morning because that's when my mind seems to just work better, and also when less people are online. And then there might be times where in the afternoon I just take Dave for a walk, or you know, just take some time away from a desk and do things. But sometimes that's few and far between, and it's more of a nice to have. But I think the patterns of work are changing, and how you do things are changing. To your point, it's more outcome driven rather than presenteeism.
Absolutely, yeah. And the outcomes are important. And it's interesting we're talking about balance, having started talking about yoga. So
I think it's a great
balance
pun,
is
isn't it?
important, isn't it? So balance physically and mentally are just absolutely crucial, because if something's off balance, your clients will notice. They'll go, oh, he was a bit, or she was a bit, or they were a bit off today. And I didn't like the way they spoke to me. I didn't feel comfortable with what they were putting across. They weren't as effective as usual. The experience dealing with this person wasn't as good as it could be because they're off balance.
Yep.
Aha.
Yeah, and I think back to last summer, I was chatting with a client, and they're like, "Are you all right? You seem in a better place than you were last month." And we just had an open discussion about how we'd had a couple of hectic months of go lives, and I realized, when you talk about things to keep you in balance, I hadn't had a regular check in with my therapist. I'd gone, "Oh, I'm all right," and actually, that's when you still maintain all your it's like if you decided in a month's time that actually you're really flexible now, so you're not going to do yoga, you'll be back doing yoga at the end of the year because you won't be flexible again. It's like you've got to keep your checks and balances in place to stay in balance.
100%. And I think that's the word that, if anyone wants to remember anything from joining us today, is that finding that balance is a non-negotiable, really, because you don't want to drive yourself into the ground, and also you don't want to act like you're retired when you're 35, 40. It's a balance, right? It
Yeah.
has to be right. And I think there's a lot that can be learned from that.
And Jim, as we wrap up here, we'll put some links to Circadian and your LinkedIn in the show notes, but we're also going to put a link to something you're doing for Helping Hearts. So we didn't really talk about what Helping Hearts does, but at the moment you're doing 1 mile 12 ways to start 2026. And last night that was 1 mile running alongside me up a horrible hill and then down a horrible hill in Bishop Stortford. But why don't you tell us a little bit about Helping Hearts and the other challenges you're doing?
So Helping Hearts to date has raised over £1.3 million to work with 12 other remarkable child welfare charities right across Hertfordshire to improve the lives of Hertfordshire's children. And each one of those charities is absolutely brilliant in their vertical. But until Helping Hearts came along, there wasn't really an umbrella organisation working horizontally across all of those charities, encouraging them to collaborate, encouraging them to improve, encouraging them to look forwards, to move on from the old days of charities shaking tins in streets and relying on charity shops, to get with the modern way, using social media effectively, giving their donors a good experience, giving them enough information about what's going on, and really making a difference to the lives of our children and young people right across the county. And it's a model that we think will actually be adopted by other, not being too arrogant about it, but we should celebrate where we
Celebrate
can.
it.
And it's done really well, and it's made a real difference. And some of the projects and the events and things that are going on this year are pretty exciting. So the fun we have with 1 mile 12 ways, I think the next one is hopping for a mile. Can you just imagine how your knees will feel?
Don't you
Maybe
have a
the
bad
next day.
Achilles at the moment?
Yeah. So I've got another leg. So I'll be fine. Don't worry about me. But that's going to be an interesting one. I'm going to row a mile this afternoon at Paragon Fitness, which is a brilliant gym in Bishop Stortford, run by the remarkable Robbie Linsall. So Robbie is going to talk us through rowing a mile. We may ski a mile and cycle a mile on their static bikes at the gym while we're at it, because you're there, you might as well. So that's that's going on at the moment. So I'm looking for support and sponsorship for that. It needs another little push. I'd like to raise a bit more than we have at the moment. We're over £400 right now, but if I can make that to 600, I'd be very happy. So that's my ask. Later on in the year, there's Helping Hearts Week, where people put on their own whatever they want to do, whether it's bake sales, whether it's non-uniform days, whatever. That's going on. There is a parachute jump for people that like to hurl themselves from perfectly functioning aeroplanes, which always seems a bit of a mystery, but people like that sort of thing. So I'm told there is the One More Lap competition, which I know you know about, Chris, and thank you very much for signing up, which is 12 hours of relay running around the Arch Showground, which is going to be brilliant fun. So helpinghearts.com/events, you'll be able to see that in the links, but you can see all the different stuff that Helping Hearts is doing this year. And not only is it doing brilliant work for the children and young people, but it's quite a lot of fun too, I have to say.
Well, Jim, it sounds like an action-packed year. And another way you can raise funds is joining me every third Thursday of the month at Beer Shop in Stortford, where we host a quiz which raises money for Helping Hearts. There is a bit of fun in the quiz as well. That needs to be written this weekend. Jim, thank you very much for joining us on My Favourite Customer Experience and answering the last-minute plea for a podcast guest when I suddenly saw some reschedules last night while we were down the pub. Thank you so much for walking us through what you do and also the great work you do with Helping Hearts. Thank you for the invitation, Chris. It's been great fun, and it's hopefully given a few people some things to think about as well. It certainly has me. So I really appreciate the invitation, and I've really enjoyed the day. Thanks for listening and watching, folks. We'll see you in a couple of weeks' time. Thank you for tuning in to My Favourite Customer Experience.
Thank you for listening to My Favourite CX. Your listenership is important to us. On your keypad, please press a number between 1 and 5 to rank how much you've enjoyed your experience.